afternoon, good evening. Welcome. I'm Ranil Herath, President Healthcare at Emeritus. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us today. Welcome to Emory Executive Education's webinar on executive decision making for healthcare leaders. As we wait for a few others to join, please put in your name and country in the chat box so we can see where everyone's joining us today. Today joining me, we have Steve Walton, who is a professor in the practice of Information Systems and Operations Management at Emory University's Goizueta School of Business. And I'm Ranil Herath, President Healthcare at Emeritus. Today, we will be, after I give you a quick introduction to Steve's background, we are going to talk a little bit about Emory, give a little bit of Emory's history, background, program faculty. We will then be going into some detail about the program, including going into each of the modules. At the end, we will be talking about the learning outcomes and some highlights of the overall program experience. And then at the end, we will also share how you can get more information about the program, and if you're interested, how you can enroll in the program. All right, so let's jump right into it. I'm honored to be sharing a little bit about Emory and its rich history today. We say Emory is where business meets healthcare. It brings together world-renowned business education and unparalleled leadership in healthcare, including clinical care, medical education, and pace-setting research. Emory is uniquely positioned to make a difference with its own integrated academic healthcare system and health sciences center that is pioneering health research. The Goizueta Business School was founded more than a century ago, and it provides hands-on education for today's global business environment. Emory Executive Education extends to Goizueta Business School's thought leadership to high-achieving executives seeking to advance their careers. Few highlights on the Emory advantage: the Emory legacy, Emory Healthcare, the clinical enterprise of the Woodruff Health Sciences Center and the most extensive healthcare system in Georgia. It has 11 hospitals, the Emory Clinic, and more than 250 provider locations. Then you have the physician network, which is quite extensive with over 2,800 physicians in 70 different subspecialties. It's multidisciplinary. Focus areas has more than 25 disciplines that includes basic and clinical science, providing broad expertise in pretty much every area in modern medicine. And Emory is very integrated and involved with the community that it serves, with Woodruff Health Sciences Center that has invested more than $600 million to advance scientific investigations. Today, I'm really honored to introduce Professor Steve Walton. Steve's joining us today, and he is the professor in practice of Information Systems and Operations Management at Emory University's Goizueta School of Business. Steve's research focuses on strategic execution, operational decision-making, and the impact of leadership on operations outcomes. His efforts in the classroom are highlighted by many teaching awards, including the Emory Williams Distinguished Teaching Award, which is a university-wide honor, and also the Adler Prize for Excellence in Teaching. Now, Steve's not only limited to academia or the classroom. He is constantly connected with the outside industry and in touch very much with what's happening today and what's going to happen tomorrow. Steve's consulting clients have a very impressive list, and we've included some of them here, which include Sony, First Data, UPS, Siemens Medical Systems, the Home Depot, Delta Airlines, SunTrust, Panasonic, McKesson Information Solutions, the Arthur M. Blank Family Office, and many others. His work has been published extensively, including in the Journal of Operations Management, European Journal of Operational Research, International Journal of Operations Production Management, and many other publications around the world. So we are really honored to have Steve joining us today. Steve, welcome. And I'd love for you to take over, walk us through the overview of the program, and really, in your words, take us through what this program is about and a little bit about each of the modules.
Great. Thank you, Ranil. Welcome, everybody. As Ranil said, wherever you are in the world, thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, again, depending on where you are. Let me start by describing an overview of the program itself. And so, Ranil, if you could take us to the next slide. You know this from your own experience. Decision-making as an executive in healthcare is really difficult. The context in which you're making decisions is rapidly changing. The information around you that you need may not be available. It may not be the best quality of information, and yet you've got to make a decision anyway. And sometimes these decisions are very large decisions, capital investment decisions related to adding a practice, adding a new facility. And so part of being an executive, and then particularly an executive in healthcare, is you're making these really big bets, sometimes not having all the information that you would like to have. This is difficult for a number of reasons, including the way our own brains conceive of the problems that we're trying to solve. And so this program is intended to help healthcare leaders think more clearly about the decisions that they need to make. And as a program structure, it breaks the decision-making process for executives into three pieces. The first piece is understanding the decision that you have to make really clearly. The second piece is then thinking about and exploring the role of the decision maker and what motivates the decision maker and what possibly creates bias and blind spots for the decision maker. Then the third block explores what it means to be a leader in healthcare systems responsible for better decisions for yourself, for your team, and for your organization. With that as a setup, let's explore for just a minute each of the 6 modules that comprise the program. It won't be a surprise to you that executives don't face a single type of decision. They actually face a portfolio of decisions. Some decisions we would describe them as tactical decisions. They're relatively straightforward, short time horizon decisions. But then there's a second type of decision that's more complicated. These are strategic decisions, decisions that may not play out for 3 years or 5 years. And so you've got to be making a bet now. But then there's another type of decision. We refer to these as strategic problems. And the leader's job is to manage strategic problems. These are decision areas that you may not see the result of your choice literally for a decade. And one of the things that we explore in the program in this first module is how these 3 different decision types are different. And there's a real risk associated with decision-making of misclassifying. So imagine you have a long-term strategic problem area that you're working in, and you treat it as a tactical decision, something to decide quickly. You can see the challenges. Or even vice versa. You have a tactical decision that, in a sense, you overthink because you treat it mistakenly as a strategic problem. So the first module explores the classification of decisions into types and examines the challenges of misclassification, which sets up then the second module related to the decision itself. These decision types require different approaches. For short-term decisions, we can relatively easily get data. We can bring together a team of experts to solve the problem. And it may be that it's a small, highly focused team. That decision approach, both from analytics and then the decision process of comprising the team, would be very different if we're talking about managing a long-term strategic problem. Now we probably need breadth of expertise on the team. Now we won't be able to get the data that we want, so we need to use different analytic approaches. And so the second module explores what does it mean to match the decision type with the decision process. Because again, there's a mismatch that arises with their own sets of challenges. for using the wrong decision process with the decision type. These two modules together explore the structure of the decision you have to make, which leads us to the third module, which begins to explore the role of the individual decision maker. What's interesting about modules 3 and 4 as they come together is they look at the relationship of the unconscious mind with the conscious mind. Because it's this relationship between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind that gives rise to unconscious bias. We explored this issue of unconscious bias in some detail in module 3, because as the module will demonstrate, bias is an inherent part of the human condition. Every person is biased at all times, because what bias actually is the way the unconscious survival mechanisms of our brain forward information up to the conscious mind. And so we explore in module 3 how this cognitive relationship between the conscious and unconscious mind gives rise to bias. Module 4 then takes another step, because it's the same relationship between the unconscious mind and conscious mind that gives rise to judgment, insight, and creativity. We explore creativity in this module in some detail. There's very interesting data that are described in this module that demonstrate quite clearly that creativity is actually a practice. It's a skill that can be developed. Of course, there are people that are more innately creative than others, but for whatever level of natural creativity a person has, more creativity can be fostered. And we look into a 5-step process by which one can harness and extend one's own creativity, judgment, and insight. So module 3 and 4 explore the decision maker, taking us to modules 5 and 6 that together explore what it means to lead, recognizing decision types, decision processes, bias, and creativity. Module 5, I think, is particularly interesting because organizations have become so enamored of analytics and data. And data are amazing, they're awesome. But often organizations don't stop and think deeply enough about the subjective nature of both their own data and the algorithms that they deploy. We've seen with ChatGPT and other large language model artificial intelligences that these technologies are not neutral. If you think about the idea of artificial intelligence hallucinating, as they say in the literature, making up results, we've got to be really attentive to how we use algorithms and data. Think about it for just a second. You choose to write an algorithm because the algorithm embeds a value judgment. You write an algorithm because you think something's important. Inside the algorithm, you code some sort of decision mechanism. This is better than that. Again, that's a value judgment. So it's very important when you think about data and analytics and healthcare to start by asking the question, what are the value judgments that are embedded in our technologies? Which then leads to module 6, that starts to explore what's the leader's role. As a healthcare executive, you're responsible for your own decisions and the quality of your own decisions. You're also responsible for improving the likelihood that your team makes good decisions. And you're also responsible for developing a culture inside your organization that supports better decision-making. So module 6 explores these 3 levels, if you will, of leadership: individual decision-making, team decision-making, and organizational decision-making, and provides very concrete tools to help you debias your decision-making, to help you reframe the problems that you're considering. We'll also look at a handful of leader skills that I think are really important. Humility, being willing to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. You're familiar with the history of leadership. It used to be that the best leader was the one with all the answers. In complex organizations like healthcare organizations, you can't have all the answers. best leader now is the one that's humble enough to admit that they don't know and can ask better questions. And so this is what we explore in Module 6. The purpose of all of this is to allow you to devise your own decision-making playbook. Each of us has different leader styles, working in organizations of different sizes with different cultures. So I can give you a checklist of things to consider, which is what the modules 1 through 6 provide. And along the way, the activity of working a program playbook that culminates with a final project allows you to take that checklist and customize it to your leader style and the organization that you work in, with the intention that while all of the content in the modules is interesting, engaging, fun, its relevance really shines most when you translate that information into your own program playbook. And so, Ranil, I'm really excited about this program because in addition to content that I think will resonate, I love the idea that it allows each participant to devise their own decision-making approach to match their own leader style in their own organization.
Steve, thank you. Thank you for taking us through that. Now, if you, when you are reflecting back as you're talking about the modules and the program and your involvement with all these large organizations from a consulting point as well as teaching, if you were to share a couple of areas that you see today in practice that needs most improvement, where something like this could benefit by consciously and very deliberately thinking about decision-making process, because it's something we are naturally doing, whether we are trained or not. But the program is here because we know there are gaps and we could be doing a heck of a lot better than what we are doing today. So if you could address 1 to 2 areas that you see as glaring things, I wish this could benefit with changing in healthcare today, what would those be?
Ranil, that's a great question. We see this across so many organizations that the organizations want to move so quickly that they sometimes don't stop to really think about what is the decision that we're making. I do some work with the United States military, and one senior officer described their job as getting things off of my desk. Well, that's not actually solving a problem. That is getting things off of my desk. And this is true in so many organizations that this sense that we must move quickly causes so many organizations to go from recognizing that they have an issue to address to immediately jumping to a solution to that issue and not stopping and asking questions like, what exactly is the problem that we face? What are the consequences of making a decision here? What are the consequences of choosing not to act? We sometimes perceive the status quo as safe, but that's just not true. It may be, but that would just be by coincidence. And so one of the first things that I would recognize as a challenge for many organizations is the need for speed causes us to begin to solve problems before we even understand what the problems are. The second, I think, is equally important. Organizations want to judge the success of their decision-making strictly by the outcome of the decision. Did we achieve the objective that we had intended? The problem with this, and we explore this inside the modules, is in a complex, adaptive, dynamic environment like the competitive environment for healthcare systems, so much of the outcome is outside of your control. Your customers, your patients, your physicians that are members of your staff, your physicians network, other healthcare systems around you, healthcare policy at a national level. All of these are sources of uncertainty that impact the success of your success, the outcome of your decision. The modules explore understanding how decision process is related with outcome. And I think the best way to judge success of decision-making is to look, of course, at outcomes, but also at process. So I'd say those are the two. Moving too fast, therefore not necessarily solving the right problem, and then judging decisions only by outcome and not being attentive to decision process? That was a great question.
That's excellent, Steve. So I think the one comment I will add there is having a very structured process in your mind to your own decisions and the biases and all the things we discussed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the added benefit is you'll be able to articulate to the broader audience, your team, your supervisors, people who need to approve your decisions, as to that it was a deliberate process, and that I think adds cadence to the decision you made, because it's not, oh, I felt like this, but you can explain how and why you came to that decision, which gives more credibility for you to make your case to your team or your supervisors, is something that I was thinking as I was listening to you.
That's exactly correct. Having a structured process that causes the decision maker to articulate their strategic logic is actually a good phrase to use there. We make so many decisions without really understanding the strategic logic of the decision. So Renil, your point is an excellent one. One of the outcomes of this program, working through the modules, would be an enhanced ability for the participants to articulate the strategic logic behind their decisions so as to better communicate it inside their organization or to whatever stakeholders they need to communicate.
Yeah, because I think I'd like to, this was, actually I was talking with president of Emory Health about decisions you have to make on things that come in front of their desk. And a great point he made was, by the time something makes it to my desk, it's always a pretty good idea. It's usually never a bad idea, but you have to make strategic decisions on picking which ones that I can approve based on constraints on budget, time, all the other things. So similar to that decision making, if the decision on each case is articulated, I think that's where the participants could benefit, where somebody else has to decide and select some things. You can articulate your decision making process so that people know that it's there because of a very deliberate process. So just want to highlight that point, which came from Emory Health System in a conversation I had a few months ago.
That's well said.
Perfect. Let's move to the learning experience. So we spoke about the content, the modules, and some of the practical examples of how this becomes useful. The experience of the program and the program learning journey. We spoke about the expert faculty. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Let's talk about the live faculty session. So you can join your global peers on your class as well as others in live sessions to address questions and discuss the program content with the faculty and your classmates. You also get individualized feedback. You can hone your skills deeper by receiving program specific to you from program leaders on the playbook and the assignments that are given to you. I want to highlight peer learning. The programs of this nature actually attract others, many participants. We can learn as much from the participants as from our expert faculty, because they bring different perspectives to the same problem, different aspects of healthcare, different functions. So I just want to underscore and stress that this is a big part of the program too. And usually you build a valuable network that lasts beyond when the class finishes. And there are people you can tap into that you add to your network. We also have weekly office hours. So you can join the program leaders to review the week's content, review what's to come, or if you have any questions on the content. And these could be quite useful too. Final project. This is fun, and this is kind of where it all comes together. You pull everything together that you learned in a final project. So that Steve explained this much better earlier, so I'm not going to go in much into that. So this kind of are the components that are highlights of this program. It's not just a set of content that is there for you to go online and learn. It is a community. It is engaging. It has some of the best minds in the world on this topic with Steve and some of the others he's pulling into this. So this is the overview of the program, and you build a global community of learners with you. So learning outcomes, you align various types of decision-making process. You identify how personal and cognitive biases can influence decision-making. You develop personal strategies to de-bias decision-making and enhance judgment, insight, and creativity. You learn to evaluate the role of leadership in improving team and organization-level decision-making. And you develop a strategy to test for and reduce impact of bias in healthcare data analytics and algorithms. So who is this program for? Really, this is for anybody in healthcare who is moving into a management leadership role, or those who are even more senior, now getting into more strategic decision-making. And this could be for clinical or non-clinical leaders within healthcare. And when I say healthcare, this is not just healthcare providers. It expands beyond into providers, payers, government, and other health organizations. That includes pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, medical devices, the full broad spectrum of health and healthcare. At the end of the program, you will get this certificate from Emory. And for next steps, you can check out more program information. We are going to put the link to this program page in the chat. And you can check out the program information. You can download a comprehensive brochure, and you can enroll for the program here as well. With that, I do want to ask Steve if there's any final comments he'd like to make before we wrap up.
Just one. I'm really quite excited by this program. It's an interesting combination of a lot of research into decision-making, into human cognition, and into leadership that's been aimed at the healthcare system, as Ranil described. It's quite an engaging set of content, and the exercises and activities that Emeritus has built in around are really quite excellent at helping you develop your own decision-making approach in light of decision types, bias, judgment, creativity, and personal leadership. So I'm quite excited, and I hope to see you in the live sessions that we'll do for this course later on in the year.
That's fantastic. Steve, we are very grateful for the work you're doing and the impact you're having in healthcare leadership. Very grateful for you for developing and working with us on building this program. And we are very, very excited to see all of you today in the audience joining Steve's class on this program. Well, everyone, thank you very much.